Man, what a 4th of July weekend yesterday. Happy birthday, America. Boy, Aideen and I attended Beyonce last night. I've never seen Aideen party so hard. Oh, but it's Saturday, July 5th, the day after it. And the party still goes on. Americans are still celebrating, not just in America, but all over the world. Steve Laffey, Bruce Fine, welcome back to the house.
Good morning.
Thank you.
How you fine Americans doing?
Wonderful.
It's always great
So
to
Steve,
celebrate July 4th.
Steve, what does America's birthday that we just celebrated mean to you?
Oh, it means so much, and it's still the greatest country in the world. A country where a poor kid like me grew up in Cranston, Rhode Island. Parents had no money, went up to Bolden College, Harvard Business School, got to do what I wanted to do in the financial sector, and then got to try to help some people, being a mayor and with some other things, raise a large family. The word "only in America" still resonates with me. And I will tell you, I have a daughter-in-law. I call her my daughter. She's from Kenya, and she loves being in America. She's not a citizen yet, but to see her become a citizen the legal way, and to say things that the phrases that were said in the '60s when I was growing up, education, you can't take it away from you. Things like that. I'm reliving my childhood in a neighborhood full of Irish Catholics, large families, no curfews in a sense, and people yelling, "Get home for dinner," and being able to walk in and out of people's homes. I know this doesn't really exist anymore, but I love America and always will, and we need to fix it for the next generation, which we're not, but it's still an amazing, amazing country where you can just travel and go and get in your car and drive my F-250 pickup truck where I want to. It's great. It's great.
Bruce, America is certainly imperfect, and it's not really about flawed men. It's about the sacrifice that they made with this idea for who we are today, because what they embraced was liberty. It's just like why we serve God. It liberates us from sin. It puts us in perfect peace with our Creator. So it's really about liberty.
Yes. When I think about July 4th, 1776, I think about the 56 signatories of the Declaration of Independence who signed their death warrants in order to secure unalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. They knew they lose that war with the British Empire, they're going to get the death penalty. And yet they went forward anyway. It was a revolutionary idea that government depends upon the consent of the governed. No kings, no emperors, no queens, no princes, no princesses. That every individual has dignity, and every individual is entitled to rights even if the majority believes they shouldn't exist. That's what we call unalienable rights. And that the purpose of government is to secure those rights. The purpose of government is not to develop GNP, it's not to develop social welfare programs, it's to do two things: protect us from foreign and domestic aggression. Other than that, we march to our own drummer, we use our own discipline and ambition to seek fulfillment of our aspirations, develop our faculties. That's what made the United States then and today the only country in the history of the world that says it's better that maybe a few people escape justice than that the innocent suffer. Due process of law, respect for the individual, the presumption of innocence. These were landmark changes in thinking about how we organize a society. And that's what makes the United States, despite its imperfections, still by far the greatest country in the world. We still have the Declaration and the U.S. Constitution. Even if we fall short from time to time, they set the standard to which the wise and honest may repair.
Steve Laffey, I'm just so thankful that the president got his signature legislation passed, and the members got a chance to go home and finally enjoy the holidays. But I'll tell you something very fascinating. I was there Thursday morning, a little after 5 a.m. when Hakeem Jeffries, the minority leader, started his marathon speech. He was determined to surpass his good friend Cory Booker to put together the longest filibuster ever in the history of the House. But it's fascinating because I got a chance to talk to both sides of the aisle about the bill, and you would thought they were in two different countries. But one thing that was very obvious is that there's so much theater that goes on. The Republicans got over the final hurdle early that morning, and so it was up to the speaker to be allowed to read the full speech, say whatever he wanted to say. I was sitting in the chamber watching this. The binder was as thick as you can ever imagine. And I said to myself, this guy's gonna be here for hours. But anyhow, he got his thing in. He surpassed his record. They finally voted. But the question I've asked you, now that it's law, what did they vote for? What is it?
Unfortunately, I live in the third. I live in that third camp where I can't believe the bill is going to be passed, and I'm an arch-conservative, fiscal conservative who wants to balance the budget.
Why can't you believe the bill passed?
Yes, yeah, the bill passed, and I don't like it because.
Well, tell us what you don't like.
Well, I don't like the fact that it's still even more complicated for the ordinary person. I don't like that it benefits the rich people over the poor. I don't like the fact that really big lobbyists get what they want. I don't like the fact that nothing better than being the Republican senator from Alaska, where you get to put things in the bill because you're that deciding vote in the Senate, right? Why are we raising state and local tax limits to $40,000? How many people listening to this show pay over $10,000 in state and local taxes, especially if they rent? Right? So you can go on all day about the stuff, the pork that's in the bill, that remains in the bill, when the American people have said many times, 75% of them want a flat tax or a fair tax or some combination of both. And they don't get it because the lobbyists win, whether it's pharmaceuticals, whether it's whatever it might be. And we know that the deficit gets bigger with this. You can argue whether or not it was the continuation of 2017 taxes or not, and whether the CBO is right in its scoring the Congressional Budget Office. All I know is we are now past the point of going back. The deficit is too big. We used to talk about 4 giant things in the budget.
I'm going to stop you.
Go ahead.
I'm going to stop you, okay? Because I happen to have read the bill. It's not easy. It's fascinating as we celebrate America, how we focus on everything that's wrong with the bill. And there are things that are wrong with any bill that they pass, okay? What you're saying is not unusual. Every bill that's passed, there's something wrong with it. But the fact that they were going to set aside our land and use it, that was taken out of the bill. People that are making between $10,000 and $30,000 a year, they're going to get a 23% tax break on their taxes, okay? Families with 4 kids or more, the middle-class family, if you make less than $100,000, you're going to get a 15% break on your taxes. I mean, even people in restaurants with tips, they're not going to be taxed. That was taken out of bill. In fact, the other thing that the president is trying to do, he's saying farmers have come to me, they've spoken out. They feel that a lot of these people are illegal, but yet they've committed no crime. I think what we need to do, if they're working on these farms, they're contributing to America, we need to give these farmers a break. I don't understand, and I'm not beating up on my man, Steve Laffey, why do we always focus on everything that is wrong to make Americans believe that there's nothing in the bill? There's something in the bill for everybody. And let me tell you something about the rich, because all of us are rich on this set, okay? Let's just be candid. And I don't mean just by money. Money is not the only thing that defines wealth. The more money you make, the less taxes you're going to pay in the first place. And it's you, it's us, we create these jobs, we create these opportunities. The rich are very benevolent. They give the foundation. Remember the days of the Rockefellers. Why do we always think that there's something wrong with being rich when most people aspire to be rich? Bruce?
I don't think that's what Steve's criticizing.
I know you're going to say, because you don't agree with Steve, but go right ahead. Knock yourself out.
And I think also, the reason why you criticize elements in the bill, because you want to change them. That doesn't mean that because you have criticism of the bill and you think that if you don't get those criticisms out, things won't change.
But why don't you talk about also the other good things in the bill?
I understand, but those, because the huge things, in my judgment, I think Steve may agree. If you look at where there's no cuts, this staggering bloat in the military-industrial complex, $1.5 trillion, Medicaid, Medicare, the interest on the national debt, the Veterans Affairs. That's already, you're talking about 75 or 80% of the budget. There's no cut in that at all. Okay, we got rid of Cookie Monster, we got a little bit of SNAP. That is not really what we need to do to downsize the government. And one of the things I think that's shown by this tax bill is every year more and more money dictates what's in the bill, not just the tax bill. The lobbyists out there, they're the ones that know the detail that Steve's talking about. You got to hire $2,000 an hour attorneys to even understand what's in the bill and need to know, how you can take advantage of X, Y, Z. That's what's problematic about this. We all recognize, Armstrong, we want a downsized government. This is not downsized government. The debt's now going to take us to $40 trillion. The carrying costs are even more than the defense budget now. If we focus on, okay, what's positive,
but you know what,
we're going to go off of a cliff.
Bruce, I'm not disagreeing with anything that you and Steve have so eloquently stated. But let me ask you this question. Government is not set up to reduce the deficit. It doesn't matter whether Republicans or Democrats are in the office. Donald Trump or Joe Biden, they're going to spend, and they're not held accountable for it. Yes, it's going to add $5 trillion to the deficit. Yes, we could go over the financial cliff. So what is new?
No,
it's just not going to happen.
In one of the Clinton budgets, you had a surplus. If you go back to the 1890s,
that was 100 years ago.
There's surplus. Well, okay, 25 years ago. It shows it can be done.
But why isn't it being done now?
Why it's not begun? In part because there's money in the budget. In part, too, I believe the culture needs to change. We need to downsize government. Everyone grows up, believes that they're entitled to anything that government can do instead of working for themselves. That culture change has to happen, and it's not going to change unless we talk about it.
And look, it is why Elon Musk has reignited his feud with Trump. But they make Elon Musk as if he's protecting his own interests. He didn't get what he wanted. They don't listen to the substance of what he's saying, which Massey agrees with and others agree with. But they demonize Elon Musk when he tells the truth. Steve.
Of course they do. And so everything we're saying is all correct. There are things in the bill that help people immediately in the middle class. Totally fine.
Yeah.
But the bigger picture is this. Since 2008, when we really accelerated helping out really wealthy people, like the people who ran airlines, and we bailed them out and bailed out their stocks and the banks, instead of taking them to zero and making them go broke, the planes would still fly. All along the way, the middle class is slowly but surely losing it through inflation, and now they will lose it through higher real interest rates because the debt's too big. And so the debt is blocking growth. That's the bigger picture.
Hold that bigger picture.
And by the way, will I take advantage of everything I can find in the tax bill?
Yes.
I will.
Yeah, hold that. We got a lot of fireworks going today. We're still feeling the 4th of July. It's Saturday, July 5th, and we'll be back. Don't go away. I'm so glad that Steve sort of redefined what giving tax breaks to the rich, because many people, when they read that, they think it's individuals, but he's talking about people like airlines, and corporations like airlines, and people like Bezos and others. So Steve, continue, because I think you just said something that's important, and you clarify what you mean by giving the rich a tax break.
Well, that's why the Federal Reserve will intervene in the next crisis. I mean, for example, there was this whole thing in 2008 to go over the airlines. The shareholders the CEOs were bailed out rather than people. Just understand this. If indeed in 2008 the airlines and the banks and stocks had won to zero and they restructured their debt, the plane still would have flown. You would be safe. But that's not what they told you. And along the way since then, they kept rates down so low that when things finally changed in 2020, for whatever reason, that happened, started under Trump with the purchase, the payback protection program, which wasn't about middle class people. It was about who had accounts with J.P. Morgan and who could get these loans. Large law firms, I know, partners got $56,000 per partner at law firms in 2020. It set out another spending spree. None of this helped the middle class, and yet we'll do a tax bill again that will go out and say, as Republicans, not me, this is going to help this person. This will help person making less than 150. But along the way, the dollar is now going down. The debt is so big that we are now suffering. If inflation is really running, say, at 1%, we still have the 10-year bond yield at 4.4 today, or 4.3 on Saturday morning. And that means we're having 3.1% real interest rates, not the normal 2. So slowly but surely, the middle class is going to be destroyed by the higher cost and the real interest rates they're going to have. And this will slow American growth. We need a rapid change in how we do things that would help our country, and we're not getting it through this tax bill.
Bruce, I must admit, and I don't want to appear as if I like compassion for others, the amount of money that's in this bill to provide health care and everything else to illegals is just staggering. And Americans have a problem with it. But it seems as though when it's all said and done, both sides just agreed to this. It's part of what they compromised to do. Give us some
Well, listen, no matter whether one's here legally or not, if you have a contagious disease, it benefits everybody to try to get rid of the contagious disease.
But we're not talking about a contagious disease. We're talking about providing health care and the best benefits money can buy, better than what some Americans get.
Well, I'm not sure that that's gold-plated. I doubt whether they're being treated at the Mayo Clinic.
But they are. They're flooded in the hospitals. But they are.
They're treated at the Mayo Clinic?
Yeah.
I've seen it. I watch it.
Yes, it's true.
Yeah.
At the Children's Hospital in Denver, where my daughter spent most of the last month, most of the people in there do not speak English.
That's
I just want to be very blunt about it.
No, but do you mean anyone who doesn't speak English is here illegal?
You don't want to address the issue.
No, I will.
No, you refuse to address the issue.
No, listen. The United States Supreme Court held that in Morando, even here unauthorized children have a constitutional right to free public education, because it's thought.
But you're talking about reducing the deficit, cutting spending somewhere.
Yeah, it costs money to educate a child. So
well, they should be educated in the country then.
Okay.
Instead of being educated here.
Anyway, I'm telling you, the U.S. Supreme Court said that was a constitutional right because we don't want to visit the sins of the parents on the children. Now, if you, I can't say that I know exactly the amount of money being spent.
But we know it's being spent.
But we know it's being spent. We know it's being spent. But
you don't have a problem with it.
What?
You don't have a problem with it.
With taking care of people. I don't want to create
illegals.
incentives.
I'm talking about illegals.
They should be deported.
Okay. Thank you.
Why aren't they being deported?
That's what Trump is trying to do.
If we know they're illegal, then what should happen is they should be deported.
Okay. Now I want to come to this. I want to switch reels a little. Aideen, I call Aideen's name a lot. She's my longtime producer. But every major case where a jury was involved, whether it's Michael Jackson, anybody else, she's always been spot on what the verdict was going to be. She tried to tell me months ago they were going to acquit P. Diddy on the most serious charges. I said, just no way, this guy's a monster. She said, listen, he may be a monster. He may be a scumbag. But did he traffic? Did he violate the RICO Act? And obviously, according to the jury, Bruce, he did not.
Yeah. Well, I wanted everyone to be found guilty. It was Sodom and Gomorrah reading the trial, to be candid. They found
and I agree, and you and I agree. I agree on that.
But they didn't do that. They only charged Diddy, and he was found guilty of 2 counts, I believe, of interstate trafficking to procure prostitution. The Mann Act, which has been around for a long time. I don't know whether you call it a compromise verdict. I do think that probably the jury considered it looked like the women who were accusing him were at least almost in peri delicto, that they're not stupid, they know what's going on, and they consented. But in part, he resorted to violence, and so this was kind of a compromise verdict, I think.
So, here's what I can't get over, Steve. And Lord knows, I respect the decisions when it's a jury of our peers. Apparently, you can beat the daylights out of women. You can use them for sexual pleasures. You can do whatever you want to do to them. You can abuse and do whatever you want to do. But our court system, and I thought P. Diddy's lawyer did a very good job. He made it very simple. He said, look, he is definitely someone who committed domestic violence. He is a monster when it comes to women. We admit all that, the worst of the worst. But does that make him accountable for these real charges that they're trying to throw a book at him and put him away for life? And I guess the jury said no. And they never called a witness, not even him. And it worked. He appealed to the jury. But what message does it send to your children? And how will society, remember Bill Cosby. Bill Cosby, the father of America, most celebrated. He faced charges with women, and what did the public decide? He's persona non grata. Now, P. Diddy may have won in our courts, but what would the court of public opinion say when he's released? And I'll tell you something else, Steve, is where I'm going. I saw the crowds outside pouring baby oil on each other. Baby oil. That's what I saw, Bruce. Baby oil. Celebrating P. Diddy's release. You know, there's a cultural shift in our society now, Steve and Bruce, where a lot of people don't see anything wrong with what P. Diddy has done. Because the Bible tells us what is right will become wrong, and what is wrong will become right. And I'm telling you, in this trial, we're seeing it full circle, Steve Laffey.
Yes. And you are correct, and I'm not trying to be Anita Bryant from the 1970s, but the culture from even then has moved so swiftly that I don't think that P. Diddy will be a person non grata the way some other people have become, the Weinsteins in the world in jail and Bill Cosby and so forth. And it really is about four things. It's celebrity and power, issues of consent, race and stereotyping, and the hip hop culture I wrote down as I started to review this for this. And all of them are sort of like really in the forefront. There are people in where he's very popular who are very disappointed, but it's not that P. Diddy is going to change. It's not that he isn't a monster. And back to what Bruce said earlier, our Constitution is very clear that he's found innocent on certain counts, and he's going to walk free in those counts. And that's our system. That's the way it works, and we got to respect it. But even what he writes, I mean, here's a song been around the world. I'm not going to read all the words, but it starts off with, "What ain't Mace do? Got a lot of girls that love to replace you." Then he has the bad word I can't say about black people. It begins with an N. He has the S word. Funny, never find that. Puffer, he talks about a dime stack. Now he's talking about pot. Right, hot, the S word. It goes on and on. In one sentence, there are things I can't read anywhere. Now, I can't say.
Well, let me tell you something.
So the culture has shifted so much.
You could say that about
I am removed from even understanding what's going on.
Wait a minute. You could say that about the majority of them. It's not just P. Diddy. It's
No,
all
the
of them.
majority of them.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
this culture has dragged us. So I would just ask the question, if you're in Miami today and you're singing these songs, how do you live the American dream and travel to Kansas to get a job?
But you don't have to attend if you don't want to. These women are not stupid, and I'm not trying to defend.
But you do
The
say,
fact is-
you do feel they bear some accountability and responsibility.
Yeah, absolutely, the
Okay,
women do. They're
yeah.
not
Then
dumb.
you're right,
They
you're
know
right,
what's going
you're right.
on. They're taking $10,000 a month rent from him. They're getting benefits from him. And so these people are not mentally backward or anything like that. So they're making their own decision. They're adults, and they made a decision. I think it was unwise. And the message is, if you're a girl or a woman, stay away from these people. You think they were clueless about what Diddy's character was? No, women are even more penetrating than men in knowing character. They did it because they thought there was something in it for them. And I think that's what the jury verdict reflects.
But also, I just want to, there's something so important to me. The mistreatment of women is never okay.
I agree.
And our culture is okaying it to what you said about the Bible in the beginning of this conversation, Armstrong. It's never okay, but it's become okay.
But
and
you
we
know
got to
what?
reverse that.
You know what's unfortunate?
Only the church can redo that.
You know what is unfortunate? It is okay. Because you know what? Women are harsher on the women than the men are. That's the funny part about it. I mean, I don't know anybody who I've spoken to have had any sympathy for Cassie and everybody else. They just haven't. But still, Did he realize after this week's verdict that he needs to change? Can he become an example of how to move this culture back in the right direction? Or will he become emboldened, become invincible? This is what happens.
He needs to be a Paul on the way to on the road, and
What
it
road?
has to strike him.
I don't think he's on the road to the Pentecost and the road to Damascus. I don't think he's on that road.
No. Well, part of it, Armstrong, will depend upon the sentencing. There are potentially 2 5-year sentences, which they stack could be 10 years. But he could get no time as well. So that may concentrate his mind, and he may say things differently to the judge. He may get a deathbed conversion and suddenly be repentant. He didn't display the repentance, I say, at the trial itself. But maybe if he thinks it's needed to get a reduced sentence, he will change.
When we come back, I put together some thoughts on independence in America, which I'm going to share with Bruce and Steve and get their response to when we come back. Because I want to talk about the 4th of July in America and what it means. The little old country boy like me who came from South Carolina on a farm with parents and 8 brothers and 2 sisters, and God has blessed me to continue to realize not the American dream, but the moral dream. What happens when you're moral in all things that you do and you strive for morality, not for materialism. Some people confuse the two, and they're not one and the same. We'll be back. Don't go away.
It is easier to build up strong children than to try and repair broken men.
The streets are plagued with crime, violence. There's a lot of poverty, and it's all a result of lack of education that's happening in our schools. So it really is a crisis.
We come from very different political perspectives, but we've come to the same conclusion, and that is there is a crisis in the classroom. Children are being deprived of quality of life because they're being deprived of a good education. We must solve this problem. It's incumbent upon all of us to join hands together to get this done.
We can't afford to wait one more day before we address these issues, because every day we lose another child.
Let's stop the politicking. Let's stop the games. Let's really do something to give these kids a real chance at life and being a part of that American dream.
We need accountability for funding. Many of the districts where you're seeing very low test scores, students graduating with very low literacy and math comprehension rates, they are receiving a lot of funding. So where is the money going where our kids aren't being adequately educated?
If you believe every child is deserving of a quality education, please go to educationjusticefoundation.com. And welcome back to the broadcast with our guests, Steve Laffey and Bruce Fine. There are many who gathered this July 4th under the guise of celebration, barbecues, fireworks, flag waving. But how many of us really truly understand what they're celebrating? Do you understand what we're celebrating? Because in an era where grievance has replaced gratitude, the 4th of July has become a hollow ritual for some. And the danger is not just in forgetting our history, but in rewriting it through the narrow lens of modern discontent. And there's a lot of discontent in America. But let us be clear. America was not perfect in 1776, and it is not perfect now, and nor will it be in the future. But perfection is not the metric of freedom. Liberty is. And in declaring independence, those flawed men chartered a course towards a society where individuals, not monarchs or mobs, hold the reins of destiny.
There is much hand-wringing today over Americans' founding fathers as slaveholders, landowners, men of contradiction, extinction of the Native Americans. But history does not offer saints. It offers context. And in the context of their age, the radical notion that government should derive its power from the consent of the governed was earth-shattering. That principle, not the imperfections of the men who penned it, is what we celebrated this 4th of July week. The alternative offered by critics of America's founding are frankly unconvincing. Replace merit with quotas, liberty with bureaucracy, individual responsibility with collective guilt, and you get a society that stagnates, not flourishes. What is too often lost in modern discourse, my fellow patriots, is that the freedoms we take for granted, freedom of speech, freedom of worship, due process, equal protection, are still rare commodities in much of the world. Just travel the world and see for yourself. I've spent my life examining the consequences of ideas, and few ideas have been as consequential or beneficial as the belief that man is born free and that government exists to secure, not bestow, those freedoms. And let me tell you about our beloved America, that despite its sins, has done more to lift the condition of man than any other nation in our history. So it is fashionable in elite circles to mock patriotism, to decry the flag as a symbol of oppression rather than emancipation. But tell that to the millions who fled tyranny to reach our shores. Tell that to the Vietnamese boat people, the Cuban refugees, the Soviet dissidents. They risk everything, not to criticize our country, but to join it. And so, we must not let spoiled intellectuals and political opportunists redefine America as irredeemable. That is not just dishonest, it is very dangerous. If we teach our children to hate the very foundations of their country, do not be surprised when they tear the whole edifice down, brick by brick. The 4th of July, the founding of America, the celebration of America is not about a flawless past. It is about the promise of the future. It is a recommitment to the ideas of ordered liberty, limited government, and the dignity of the individual. And we are not celebrating men. No, 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 no. We are celebrating principles, because liberty is not inherited automatically. It must be understood, defended, and passed down. And that begins by refusing to let this 4th of July celebration holiday become another victim of ideological vandalism. So this Independence weekend, I ask a simple question to my guests, Bruce and Steve, and to you. Are we a people still worthy of freedom? If the answer is yes, then we must act like it. Know your history, teach it, defend it, and above all, live like liberty means something, because without vigilance, even the freest nation, Bruce and Steve, can forget why it exists. Steve.
Yeah, this better words never spoken. Thank you. I'm ready to roll now. But I would just tell you that I hope we're at the bottom of what's happened with patriotism in our country. The recent Gallup poll shows that only 58% of the people in our country are either really patriotic or fervently patriotic, and that's down from nearly 100% 30 years ago. And among younger people, it's running at 33% who consider themselves patriotic or think they're blessed to live in America, whatever the phrase you want to use. And so we've got to do more, especially with younger people, to show them that this is still the country that we can still live in, operate in, And through our Constitution, through these and when I think of 1776 in my study of history, I just think of bravery. Remember, not the majority of people didn't want to do it. And it was these fervent people in Boston and Philadelphia and Sam Adams and the gang and Ben Franklin. And think of all they did in a minority and risked everything, everything. And many of them died. Many of them were pastors. So I think we can do it. And I think it's our job as now getting to be the elders to keep teaching my children, our children, people you see on 4th of July, that I saw yesterday, that what a great country it is and how we just got to strive for what the ideals were, knowing we won't all get there to where we need to be or want to be in our lifetime. But America is still that shining beacon for everybody in the world. And that's why people still come here legally. They have to come. They want to come. They've got to get out of their country. And look what they've done in our country, whether it's Indian Americans, Italian Americans, Irish Americans, whatever we say, this great melting pot is still producing the best in the world.
Bruce?
I think that the test is whether or not, as an American, we would have joined the 56 who signed their death warrants on July 4, 1776. The price of liberty is eternal vigilance. And so that has to be the standard from day one in parents with children, in the classroom, in the pulpit, in the news media. That's what will return us to the greatness that we inherited from our framers. And I believe, unfortunately, one of the requirements, if we're going to return to celebrating liberty, is to downsize government in an orderly, fair way. It is so staggeringly big, it's turned into a leviathan. The framers who signed that declaration wouldn't recognize the government. That's the United States of America, because big government automatically means encroaching on your liberty. We want to work, give everyone a fair chance, but ultimately it's up to us. I think that we measure our greatness as a country by how much liberty and due process and dignity we give to each individual, not racing abroad in search of monsters to destroy. That's what we need to get back to.
You know, that brings me back to how we started this conversation. I think the big problem with the bill that just passed, Trump's big, beautiful bill, the Democrats call it the big, ugly bill, is that most people don't know what is in it. And both parties are so focused on enacting their agenda that many of them don't realize what's in the bill. And I think that's a part of freedom and liberty too, is that you gotta know what you're saddling the voters with. I don't agree with Nancy Pelosi. Well, read it, well, just pass it and read it later to find out what's in it. That doesn't work, Stevie.
Yes, Americans would be so much more in to the system if there were lots of series of small bills that they could say, oh, okay, I get that people could read, people would understand, rather than the 1,100-page monstrosity that was just passed again, that we've gone over, which it's sad, but we're losing this is why I believe even in no matter what, we should not take everybody or more people off the tax rolls of federal taxes. Everybody has to pay something, no matter what we decide at the end. At the end, it should say you made $10,000, send it $100. You made $20,000, all these tax credits at zero, please send us $150. I found this in campaigning. When people contribute to my campaign, $10, they were in. And we don't even have that in America anymore. So we need to have much smaller bills that people can understand. And we need buy-in with the American people on each bill. And we don't have that at all anymore. We just have who's in control, how do they force it down people's throats, and then how do they change votes at the very end and give people what they need in different districts or states to get it passed. And then people say, bunch of corrupt people.
Yeah, but for 120 years, we didn't have an income tax. We were running budget surpluses. If we downsize the government, we don't need an income tax at all. We pay through tariffs and excises, and we have government at a reasonable level. That's what our aspiration has to be if we're going to regain what I consider the liberty-centered universe that our forefathers gave us. If that doesn't happen, we're going off a fiscal cliff. We're racing towards 50 trillion national debt with unfunded liabilities even larger than that. It's not sustainable. And when we run into a crisis, we bail out the bankers and the other people who are rich rather than the ordinary person. And the reason why we bail them out because they contribute more money to the political campaigns. And that's not going to change unless the American people are able to refashion their image of what they need to be as a citizen and where the United States greatness really lies. Again, not in projecting power all over the globe, except by the example of the American people and downsizing government.
One of the big issues in this bill was health care and Medicaid, cutting Medicaid. What just fascinates me, Steve, if Trump and those are very serious about getting the waste out of Medicaid, why don't they go after Big Pharma, the hospitals, the primary health care providers? Can you imagine how they fleece people, force them into procedures that they don't want, going back for more visits that they don't need? Putting them on medicine that makes them even sicker? That's where the fraud is, if you really want to tackle it.
Yes. And for example, go back to some simple bills. Maybe I'm just going to be as simple as possible. Many of these giant hospital chains are nonprofits. How about changing the law? Nobody's a nonprofit if anybody at the firm makes over $100,000 a year. Okay? We could do a lot of things like that with Medicaid. How about just changing the law that no state can have more than 10% of the people on Medicaid? Let them deal with it. Should there be more than 37% of the people in California are on Medicaid? Does that sound like a normal number?
No.
Well, certainly work requirements, but we could have one-page laws that everybody reading them would be like, oh, yeah, okay, we could do that. And I just made those up for you. We could change but that's what's needed rather than this constant argument that nobody understands. I'm talking about the general people who have other things to do with their life. I spend my life on this. They don't. They need something simple that they can understand. Say, yeah, if you are paraplegic, if you have stage 4 cancer and you can't work anymore, if you got hit by a car, if it's bad genes or an accident, we get it as Americans. We'll help you. If you can go to work, go to work. And it can't be more than 10% of the people. Want to save $600 billion? There you go.
But part of that, Steve,
thank you. No, my brother. I know, but
I'm sorry.
I got to get out of here because we got a final guest who's going to talk about America, because that's what we celebrate. Bruce Fine, Steve Laffey, thank you. Happy 4th of July weekend. We'll be back.
Amen.
As a home buyer, you need a lender who cares about your home ownership dreams. United Security Financial has been helping families secure their dream homes for 30 years. We're a national fair practice lender that provides affordable mortgages and low down payment programs to eligible home buyers. To learn how United Security Financial can help you secure your dream home, call 1-800-373-4186.
Now we're joined by Lieutenant Colonel Sean Clements from the United States Marine Corps Reserve. First, let us thank you for your service, my man.
It's always our privilege. I appreciate all the support to veterans, but it's definitely a privilege to serve the country.
How long and when did you serve?
Oh boy, you're making me think back. I'm a 28-year career Marine Corps officer, dating back to coming in 1993, spending about 7 years on active duty, and then in the reserves for the balance of the time. Served in Okinawa first, and then stateside, and then also in Iraq from 2004 to 2005, and then Romania in 2011.
How much has changed since you've served?
It's funny you mentioned that, because I also have quite a military family, and talked to my brother, who is a 28-year retired colonel in the Army. We try not to joke too much about him being in the Army, but things haven't changed so much. Being in the service that long and seeing the ups and downs of peacetime, wartime, a couple of times blows our mind a little bit. So there's that piece. But I think if I'm relating it to the discussion you were just having and what you were talking about in your monologue, the the people serving your country, our country, have not changed one bit. I think there's probably some on the fringes, on the periphery, where you get folks that were serving sometime that had different thoughts about what that service meant. But the core, the people, have not changed. They're as pursuing soldierly virtue as much as they ever have been. They're patriots to the core, and everybody should feel confident that we have the right people on the front lines defending the country. I think as much as they're a sample from across the country, they're not a sample of the experimentation and trends that you see playing out on TV a lot. I think they're the same people that served at Bunker Hill as served today.
So, Lieutenant Colonel Clements, what does freedom and liberty means to someone who served in combat zones?
It means the world. I try not to think that we're unique, different from other Americans. I think our appreciation might be unique from other Americans because of what you say, because of our service in wartime. Even without wartime, the sacrifices that we make even in peacetime give a different lens to it. Just for instance, having 6 months of time in Romania in the Black Sea region, while not in combat, to work with colleagues and comrades in arms from 13 different countries that were former Soviet bloc countries, and them tell you what they lived through, and give their perspective on why America is still the shining beacon for them. And they're so confused at why they see so much dissension here amongst Americans because of what they see in communism. That's one thing that shines through. My wife is actually from a former communist bloc country in Romania. And she lived up through 8-9 years in Romania and remembers when communism fell and she was able to get oranges for the first time at will. And that's just an 8-year-old's perspective, but her mother lived under that regime, and the confusion, the frightening kind of paranoia that they developed within the populists, even amongst themselves, it makes you appreciate freedom that much more.
Speaking of that, what is it that everyday civilians, especially those who have no concept of wanting to serve in the military and serve this country, what do they often misunderstand about the cost of the freedom that people like yourself in the United States Marine Corps and other branches of the military sacrifice so that we can enjoy this everyday freedom which so many take for granted and have no concept what is sacrificed to protect it?
I think I think a lot of folks focus on their knowledge of pop culture, of the military, and we get asked a lot of questions along that line, and they think they kind of have a Hollywood version of what we do, and not necessarily the reality. So that's really why folks who are veterans, it's great for people to reach out and really explain to them the sacrifices, and it's not just living in a foxhole type stuff. It's even in peacetime being away from your family for 6 months at a time and having, say, a child born while you're on deployment. I was fortunate to not have that scenario, but I did have a child, a young son who's now in recon in the Marines. When I came home after Iraq, he was 4 years old and was scared to come up to me initially because he hadn't seen me in so long. So those are the types of things, and also the sacrifices at home that folks make, not just the veterans themselves. So really being able to explain to people who don't have real good frame of reference is really something that veterans should be doing in order to help gain more support. The thanks for our service is really important, but talk to a veteran, sit them down, and really understand what's behind the career that they had or the time that they had in service.
What do you say, and how does it make you feel when you see someone burning the American flag?
I'll try not to get too upset. It's pretty upsetting, and I know what we fight for is freedom of expression, first and foremost, in the Bill of Rights, and they certainly have a right to do it. It's something I would never ever consider. I actually had my 6-year-old daughter out with me yesterday, taking unserviceable American flags to the local American Legion to drop them off to be properly disposed. And probably not a lot of folks understand that part of the proper disposal is actually putting them in a fire and respectfully and disposing of them. So I'm trying to teach her lessons that she can take with her. Burning the flag, like I said, it's a right we defend. It's certainly not something I would ever do.
Do you think they really understand what it does to people that have served and served now when they do that, instead of just thinking about themselves and their own sometimes misguided protests and reasons for desecrating the flag?
I don't think folks get it. It's just something that when you serve, it's in our blood now. It's part of the training, part of the lifestyle, part of our heart. At the end of the day, is that we serve the nation, and that is an ironclad symbol of the nation, and not just the nation itself. All of those have gone before us to secure and preserve that freedom. So it's as much as to some of us, it's as much as desecrating a memorial or something in a gravesite. It means so much more. It's the fabric of the nation.
In about 40 seconds, I literally have 40 seconds left. What is it that you could say to younger people today, or anybody, to give them a reason to volunteer and serve in the military?
Well, I'm not a recruiter, so
you're the best recruiter.
I'm not sure that I could. I do it by example, and I've had a whole career of service that, even the service and the sacrifice that we had through service as that career has paid dividends for me. It's given me a North Star in what is right, and those principles that we pursue, honor, courage, and commitment. It centers you. It gives you the discipline to carry out through your life with something that is sure. And I think everybody wants that and looks for that in purpose.
And look at you. You've given one of the best answers I've ever heard, Lieutenant Colonel Sean Clements. And thank you again for your service. Thank you for joining us. And thank you for joining us for this 4th of July weekend Armstrong-Williams show.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Have a happy Independence Day.
Thank you, brother. There's